When we think about gender inequality, we usually think about pay gaps, domestic violence, underrepresentation in leadership position. But when does inequality begin? Who here has a boy or a girl in kindergarten? Do you think they receive equal treatment from their teachers? Do they have the same opportunities to choose freely what to wear, what to play with, and with whom? And maybe inequality begins even earlier, when we come into the world and the doctor says, "Congratulations, it's a boy or it's a girl," and we are dressed in blue or pink clothes. Maybe that's when it begins. But actually, this is kind of old news. Studies have already revealed the subtle but stable forms of gender construction that occur on a daily basis in schools, in curricula, textbooks, and especially in learning processes. And we also know the costs. So the big question is, why? Even though we know about the problem, why is it so hard to change it? What needs to be done for it to change? A few years ago, when I was a Hebrew teacher of 8th and 9th graders, I noticed that even though I consider myself feminist, and despite my desire to conduct equitable discussion in my class, I still fall into gender biases every day. And this led me to research the question how we can help teachers challenge gender biases and foster greater gender equity in the classroom. By saying equity, I mean not only allocating resources equally, but also considering the differences among people who need different support in order to succeed. So what are these building crates in the classroom? To understand this, I'm conducting a design-based research. This research methodology had three main phases. The first phase is investigating the gender biases specifically in classroom practice. The second phase is design and develop tools in order to challenge these biases. And the third phase is implementing the tool in the classroom. Then we learn again how the tools affect the biases in the classroom and what more need to be changed, and we continue to a new cycle. And here's how it works. During the investigation phase, we examine how the gender biases identified in previous studies are actually manifested in Israeli classrooms. For that, I observed 12 teachers from 4 elementary schools and their 380 students from 4th to 6th grades. Everything that I will show you is based on the data that I've recorded so far, 20 team meetings, 100 lessons, and interviews with 120 students. So now, let me take you on a journey to one of our 5th grade class. And don't worry, there won't be any grades or homework, I promise. So imagine the smell of kid socks after sport class, mixed with pastrami and of course tangerine peels. Is it wonderful, yeah? You are sitting at the 3rd row next to your good friend when the Hebrew teacher enters the class. The lesson starts and the teacher asks, what does the word bonfire have in common with the words apartment and a ball? What happens now? Who participates? What do boys and girls do when they don't understand something? Here is what the girls I interviewed had to say about such a moment.
יש פעמים שאני מצביעה ושואלת בקול, אבל כאילו זה לא נעים, כי יש כאילו ילדים שמסתכלים עליך כאילו מה, אתה לא מבין את זה, זה כאילו זה נושא קל. אז כאילו יש פעמים שאני פשוט מחכה שמישהו אחר ישאל את זה, כי אני רואה שיש ילדים שלא מבינים.
Among the boys, it sounds more like this.
אצלי, כאילו יש ימים, יש פעמים שאני באמת לא מבין משהו ברמה שאני לא מבין את החומר בכלל, ואז אני כן אומר, אני לא הבנתי, אני שואל אותה אם אפשר להסביר שוב.
But what about expressing opinion on controversial topics? The girls share their ways of dealing with such situation.
תקשיב, כל פעם שאני לא מסכימה עם המורה או לא רוצה לענות, אני פשוט צריכה לשתות מים. אחרי כמה פעמים אני שותה מים בשיעור. אני אמרתי, צריך להיות שחקנית כזאת. כאילו אם אני שותה מים והיא אומרת לי תעני, אני כאילו נחנקת.
Imagine this girl feeling like this 7 hours a day for 12 years. Afterwards, we wonder why women don't negotiate for higher salaries and why women don't speak up in abusive relationships. When most of the boys were asked about it, they replied,
אני לא אשתוק, אני לא אשתוק על זה, פשוט לא אשתוק על זה.
אוקיי,
אני אצעק, אני אגיד,
אתה תצא? אוקיי.
אני אעמוד על עמדתי.
but of course, the picture is more complex. Some girls will feel more comfortable asking questions if they don't understand something and expressing their opinion if they disagree. And the reverse is true for boys. But after interviews with 120 students, I can certainly identify these patterns in general. And now, after we learn about the gender biases in the class, we are moving into the development part to develop tools in order to challenge them. To produce applicable tools for teachers, our development team includes 12 teachers and 2 instructors, one from the Center of Gender Equality in Education and other from the Ministry of Education. I want to introduce you to a simple tool that we have developed in order to challenge gender biases in student participation. As we learned, the girls shared that they are afraid to participate if they aren't 100% sure of their answer and that they need more processing time. To address this, we chose to use an existing tool, actually, that's called Think, Pair, Share, and we refined it through a gender lens. In this tool, students think independently about a question, and then they share their ideas with the classmates. To challenge gender biases, the teachers also added to the tool a writing time after the thinking phase, using personal eraser board for each student. Here you can see how the teacher uses this practice in 4th grade math lesson. She wrote an exercise on the board. The students wrote their solution, shared them with a friend, and then shared them with the whole class. During the implementation phase, in my observation, I asked 2 main questions. What are the challenges of implementing the tool, and how does the tool affect student participation? In most cases, using the tool ensured that all students had the opportunity to speak and have their voices heard. And specifically, it reduces outbursts and increases girls' participation, as one of our teachers shared.
שהיא ילדה מאוד חזקה, לימודית, ילדה מאוד מאוד חזקה, שהיא תמיד, אני יודעת שהיא יודעת את התשובות, היא לא משתתפת בכלל, לא בקריאה קולית ולא בקריאת תשובות ובשום דבר. ואז עשינו שוב שיעור שהם צריכים לכתוב לעצמם את התשובות של השהיה, ואז להרים ולהראות, היא השתתפה בלי סוף. כאילו פה פתאום האור בעיניה, זה כאילו משהו שנתן לה כמו סמיכי, חפץ מעבר. והתשובות שלה היו נהדרות, והיא הרימה והורידה, והיא אמרה, אני פשוט אוהבת את זה. וכל הזמן הם שואלים, מתי משתמשים, הם מבחינתם שזה יהיה קבוע.
But of course, there were also gender-related challenges and difficulties in implementing these tools. Some students had difficulty working in pairs with students of different gender. The teachers were faced with the dilemma of how to handle with such situation. Should they force them to work in mixed pairs? These challenges leads me to additional questions, such as can certain tools unintentionally reproduce gender biases? And are awareness of biases and practical tools really the key to change? Or perhaps we need something else? So far, I have presented you a tool that deals with gender biases in student participation, but we are also dealing with other biases, for example, in disciplinary events and in emotional discourse. Why does the teacher ask mostly girls questions like, how does this story makes you feel while asking boys questions like, what do you think about what was said? Maybe that could explain why my partner has trouble expressing feeling. And he's not the only one. And why do teachers behave harshly with girls in disciplinary event? Maybe it will surprise some of you. But we observe teacher gently suggesting boys to relax outside the classroom while tending to punish girls swiftly and harshly. And currently we are implementing tools to deal with, that we have developed to deal with these biases as well. So now that we already know that gender inequality begins at an early age, and we know the subtle mechanisms that reproduce it, it's time to figure out how we can change them. If we change it in 5th grade class, in our homes, with our children, hopefully in the future, we won't have to deal with pay gaps, underrepresentation of women in the Knesset, and violence against women, and all the things, everything that we think of when we hear gender inequality. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yoni from Ben-Gurion University. Thank you. That was very impressive and very elegant. And I think it could be revolutionary for Israeli society, even for universities, by the way. I have like a very banal but important question. What about like gender in a more diverse way? You're talking about boys and girls.
Yes. Actually, this is this is a big challenge, because we try to develop tools that don't reproduce the binary thinking, and but if we want to talk with the teachers, implicitly on non-binary identities, they are okay. No, I don't want it. Okay, so we trying to come, not in in the door of the gender and non-binary, but I try to develop tools that they are not only for boys or for girls. The Think Per Share is not only for girls, and I think it's include whole races and all the things that that they have in the class.
When we use those two categories, even as a scientific question, in a way, the two categories of boys and girls, we enforced this dichotomy again.
Yes, but we are not using these categories in our tools. You can't see it you ask more girls. No, we are helping to the teacher to have glasses of gender glasses. To look and to ask herself why I did this with this girl and I did this with other. There's also differences among the girls and among the boys, and we know it. So we don't use these categories in our tools, but in my presentation it's yes.
Hi, thank you. It was fascinating. Omri from Ben-Gurion. I have two questions. First, it's related to what you just said. Isn't that these tools that you're using are supposed to make are more aimed to equality as a whole, and how is it related to gender specifically? And did you see any differences between different educational systems, different what we call in Israel different tribes? So that's the first question, all of that. And the second one...
Maybe I will answer the first.
Okay.
Because it was two. It was two questions. For your first question, there is a tension, to develop tools that look at only gender with gender lens and not for equality as a whole. So when the tool like we developed a tool that want to promote equality at home. So the teacher asked, why? How it's related to gender? Like, so we are like trying to, I don't know, to balance with this tension. Like, because if we talk about equity, we can forget gender, but no, it like some of this, I don't know, basket. And like for different educational
or cultural
Actually, I work in like 4 schools, and there is differences like in more traditional teaching. Like I saw when the teacher more like she told their students what to do, and like she take it more, I don't know how to say the word. It's more like help to do something else, because there is like, I want the student to choose freely to work with their friends, because I think that they have a freely choice and things like this. But no, I want to tell them, no, listen, it's not really free. Like they choose to work with I don't know, the same gender because like they used to it. So I think that with teachers, like it's more, I don't know how to say, they stick to the rules. It's more easy to make a change. So, but it's interesting, I think.
For me, it was very apparent, just from the pictures that you showed, that the vast majority of educational figures that the children are exposed to are women. Do you think that it has any kind of influence on?
Yes, I expect this question will be the first. Like, it's really the first question. But I didn't organize the answer. But actually, in primary schools, especially, there is few men's teacher. So, like, I'm researching our reality. But I think that the situation, if I will research men teachers, it will be different. I think that there is differences, but actually we don't have at all. And especially in the primary schools. Yes.
Hi, Tamar Mishala from Hebrew University. First of all, I want to thank you for your great talk and your important research. And I wanted to ask if there's any hashpa'ah of how the teachers address the classroom. We know that Hebrew is a less inclusive gender language, and I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it, and if we're seeing, like, we know that English is a more inclusive language in relation to bias, of gender bias, and if what you're finding in your research is any different than in other countries.
Yes, actually, the Hebrew language is like is the first thing that we think when we think about like teaching in the classroom. If there is impact of how I address to my students, actually, I think that there is, but I think that like I didn't research this, and I don't know where researchers already did it, but I think that when we, if we look only at this, it's like the whole projector on the language, and we miss the main issue that is not like what we can see. Like the teacher said, תלמידים ותלמידות, או ילדים וילדות. Like the subtle ways is more powerful, and it's more hard to face them. And so I think like the language is also a problem, and our teacher, like, they tried to address also in 2 ways, but I think it's not the main issue. Like Merav Michaeli and all these things, it's important, very important. What we need to be to ask ourselves, what is the important thing here?
Aviv, there's more questions, but there's no more time. So thank you very much.